Hello everybody, I am Dr. M. Prashanti Devi, Associate Professor in Environmental Sciences and Management at Bharathidasan University, Tiruchirappalli. So I am here to talk about climate change and community responses and how technology can be used for alternate decision making. So let's go to the presentation. So this is a small overview of what I will be dealing with in my presentation. So we'll be looking at the terms for climate change and adaptation, a brief introduction, and what are the potential impacts and vulnerabilities of climate change, what are the various adaptations and mitigations measures, the various technologies that is available for community enhancement, and we'll be looking at satellite technology and smartphone technology in particular. So we know that every year we have large scale deliberations about climate change, and the scientists and national leaders are talking about combating climate change, identifying the various sources of climate change, causative factors, and also developing or introducing new policies or new regulations to minimize emissions at global scales so as to combat the impact of climate change on the globe. So we know that 97% of climate papers state that a position of human caused global warming agree that global warming is happening and that we are the cause for climate change. Okay, so I am not going to deal with the national or the global policies, or I am not going to tell about this can be changed or this cannot be changed. So we are going to talk about how, at a small community level, how a small social level, a small community level, certain things can be used by the human population to adapt to climate change. So these are the different terms that are being used in climate change and adaptation. So we look at what adaptation is. Adaptation is adapting to climate change and the impacts of climate change, and how a human population is either resistant to the changes caused by climatic evasions. And the capacity, also known as adaptive capacity, is how much or the measure at which a human population is able to adapt to the changes in a climate region. And vulnerability means the susceptibility or the vulnerability or the impacts that climate change has either on the health or the population itself due to climate change. And then technology, we know, are various low cost. We are talking about low cost tools that can help in human population or can sound a human population about the changes, regional changes specifically due to climate change. And here we are talking about environmental sound technology that can benefit both the society as well as the environment to adapt to climate change and various other environmental mitigation measures that can be done through technology. And technology transfer, we know, is knowledge sharing from one area to another area or from one population to another population, so that the same kind of technology or a modified technology can be adapted in other regions. So we are well aware that we have two major ecosystems in the world. One is a human ecosystem or human developed ecosystem, and the other one is the natural ecosystem. So we know that the human ecosystem is dependent on the natural system, and we go by the seasonal variations, and we go by the patterns, ecosystem patterns in a natural area, and that is how we have been dependent on for all our resources over the few years. And climate is the major factor that controls both the human system as well as the natural ecosystem. But our human population, we have been exploiting the natural ecosystem, which has also led to large scale variations in the climate. And these large scale variations have changed as to how the natural pattern is there in an ecosystem. So the impacts of such changes has lead to a lot of other small ecosystems or small patterns that are changing on on the ecosystem that we are dependent on. So first one that is mainly affected is the agriculture. So the duration, growth duration, yield, crop yield has changed or decreased, and especially because of the radical changes in the rainfall, or longer dry seasons and wetter conditions has led to a lot of loss in crops. Again, water, either the water runoff is not being predicted, or we are not able to estimate the rainfall patterns, or increased temperature has led to drought, or increased evapotranspiration, which has led to, large scale variations in drought wet conditions, which has invariably changed the seasonal cropping patterns. Again, we have identified shifts in our bioclimatic zones, especially in the tundra region, and we have observed a lot of areas that are being desertified over the past few years. Forest areas are being depleted, and more forest areas converted into degraded lands, or grasslands. This has led to loss of habitat among the wildlife, and also a lot of species that are dependent on specific habitat zones are becoming extinct. Again, another area that is being impacted is the coastal zone. So where this coastal zone holds a lot of economic activity and holds a lot of infrastructure, but over due to climate change over the recent years, or over the past few decades, it has become vulnerable to increase in the sea levels, and has been prone to a lot of weather related events like cyclones, storms, and increased floods, tsunamis, and all that. And not only these, the local flora and the local fauna of the coastal areas are also being adversely impacted, which has also led to a lot of loss in the marine biodiversity. Again, introduction of new diseases, introduction of vector-borne diseases, and regional changes, or the niche at which these ecological niche at which these parasites or vectors are observed has also been changed over the recent years. So we can see that we have new variants, new disease variants, new disease vectors, all are changed. And not only vector-borne diseases, diseases such as diarrhea, especially in the low-income group countries, we have high cases of diarrhea, malnutrition, respiratory infections, and again in developed countries, we are able to observe heart diseases, non-communicable diseases, and diseases like stroke is also observed. So all these diseases or health related patterns are also another impact of climate change. Again, looking at the sensitive ecosystems, most of these sensitive ecosystems are largely impacted because of greenhouse gas emissions, and extreme changes in the weather patterns, and again resources depletion, and all these has led to loss of sensitive ecosystems and loss of habitat in a both at national and global scales. So when we are talking about a community, be it an animal community or be it a human community, the health of the community is very, very important. So when we look at the human population as a community is dependent on agriculture, primarily, then on the water resources, and then on the forest resources, and also the coastal resources. So these major resources are derived from a an ecosystem, or a biodiversity ecosystem. So we need an ecosystem, and we need the ecosystem's biodiversity to maintain these resource patterns in a environment. So when the community is largely dependent on these resources, and when these resources are in an imbalance, that leads to decrease in the sensitivity of the ecosystem. The ecosystem becomes vulnerable to environmental threats. And when these ecosystems become vulnerable to environmental threats, it leads to a larger impact on the dependent human population, whereby leading to diseases among the human population. So human health itself is dependent on the resources and the biodiversity of a region. So let us look at what are the impacts, socio-economic impacts, that climate change has on the resources and the economy in a particular region. So here are the various climatic events like heat events, extreme monsoon conditions, resources depletion or resources disruption, and increased water levels, sea water intrusions, rising temperatures, changing rainfall patterns, and global warming leads to glacial melt and all that. So we can see that how many resources or how many ecosystems are being impacted because of these global climatic changes. So we can see that water resources are being impacted because of all the five events. Agriculture is largely impacted. Human health is impacted directly by these by three major events, and indirectly by two events. Economy and energy is also impacted by the five climatic events. Then we can see how tourism sector, how human settlement is impacted. So tourism sector reduces in economy due to extreme climatic events, and human settlements are either depleted or leads to migration or overburdening in agricultural I'm sorry overburdening in urban areas, leading to overpopulation, population explosion. All this is because of climatic events. And you can see that biodiversity also is impacted because of heat and wet conditions. So when we are planning climate change mitigation pattern, or when we are planning any kind of monitoring pattern, we have to go by certain derived steps as to how these ecosystems are threatened, and what are the impending factors on these ecosystems, and how we can identify the stresses, and how we can measure the stresses in an ecosystem, which leads to uh, human health, and thereby leads to various impacts which further burdens the economy or the development of a nation. So we have to first look at what are the climate related uh, variabilities and larger scale climate changes which cause impacts on a human population. And we have to also look at what are the stresses, other stresses, which like economic stresses, environmental stresses, agricultural stresses, accessibility stresses, health stresses, policy stresses, health policies or health insurance stresses. So all these stresses that may impact the human population and the dependence of the human population on a particular ecosystem. So then when we are able to identify and measure these impacts, we can look at the information, supporting information, the awareness in a particular society, and how earlier planning or policy derivations were planned, the design at which it was planned, what are the criteria they have considered for planning such policies, and what are the objectives that have led to the development of such policies, and what should be the new objectives that should be introduced to combat these stresses. And to look at that, we have to look at all the existent management policies, we have to look at the existent management practices that are there, and what and when and how they can be improvised. So once we are getting an idea about these policy action plans, their existing management plans and new introductions, we can go for an implementation of the policy in a particular region or in a selected region, and then we can monitor and evaluate the policies, and we can evaluate the impact of these policies on the human population. So by monitoring and evaluating these policies on a human population, we can strengthen the human population. We can strengthen the human population to adapt to climate changes, and also to overcome the stresses caused by climate change in an area. So this is how an adaptation or a mitigation plan is done by in a particular area. So first, to bring about these adaptation technologies for the various sources, we have to know what are the various scientific research and innovation policies that are available in a region. So we have to look at the various scientific patterns that have led to understanding climate changes, various researches and various innovation technologies that have also led to new measures or new model plans for climate change adaptation. And we have to understand the supply and demand of all these various resources that have contributed to the development of an action plan in an area. So we have all these various resources. The various resources not only supply uh, information as well as supply resources to the action plan. We have to know at the demand, the rate at which these resources are demanded for adaptation or for mitigation or for resilience of a particular community in a uh, climate change action plan. So, what are the responses of a human population or a natural system to a climate change? So, the responses can be either proactive responses or can be a reactive response after a climate change event. So, looking at the proactive responses are building strong infrastructure to mitigate climate change events, or to adapting to eco-friendly products, like introducing green products which may stop the use of other products like plastic products, or measures, green eco-friendly measures that may help in reducing pollution or the impact of pollution on a human population. And then developing new constructions to prevent hazards or climatic challenges, especially in vulnerable zones, disaster prone zones. So such constructions may prepare a human population for a climatic event. And on the occurrence of a climatic event, the plans will be like the mitigation plans will be either to evacuate or to move to better locations, either permanently or temporarily, or to develop better constructions or better living conditions, like for example, in case of increasing heat events, we go for increased air conditions or room by room air conditions for a human population, or they seek cooler locations for uh, vacation purposes. So all these are betterments of their lifestyles. So increasing the insurance policies or including climatic events into environment, I mean into health policies, compensations for climatic events or for the loss of life due to climatic events, subsidies, stricter policies, codes and penalties, especially in terms of violations for an industry or for emissions or whatever. So this is how the human population is learning to adapt and to mitigate for a climate change event. But when it comes to a natural system, the natural system does not have any proactive uh, response to a climate change event. So natural system is existent as such, but when it comes to a climate change event as such. First, it learns the natural system is resistant to an event, and when the event occurs, the natural system increases its resilience to a climate change effect. So, what would be uh, the the cases at or how will a natural system mitigate a climatic event? So, it will increase seasonal changes. Okay, it will reduce the rainfall, or the forest will be decreased. So these are some of the impacts of climate change. So there will be an ecosystem change, which leads to imbalance in the ecosystem. So just like how the human population moves to better locations, there will be migrations of animals and birds to better locations, or there will be a loss of birds and animals, leading to habitat loss or species extinction. So this is how, if it fails to resiliate, so these are the impacts of climate change on a natural system, and these impacts lead to an impact on the human population, which we call as impacts, or the environmental impacts of climate on the human population, leading to degraded living conditions, leading to degraded health in a human population. So, what can a community do to adapt to climate changes? Normally, we educate a community, or we spread awareness among a community about what are the local climatic changes, or what are the impacts of climate change in a local area, and how the people can adapt to such climatic conditions or climatic changes. So in most cases, people adapt by just changing their lifestyle or changing their behavior, maybe by moving to a different location, or by changing their occupation or whatever, or by uh, by adapting to, or by consuming more kind of cooling systems, setting up cooling systems, or changing their the house construction patterns or whatever. So that is one way many people in the urban areas learn to adapt to climate change. But often we talk about hard forms. Hard forms of climate, hard forms of adaptation means where we can introduce irrigation systems, prolonged irrigation systems, drought irrigation systems, or resistance, drought resistance seeds, intercropping patterns, or crop rotation patterns, or they can go for short term cropping patterns which give larger yield and all that. So that is what we known as hard technologies. And soft technologies are technologies which we talk about: insurance schemes, or free uh, free seeds availability, or free sapling availability, or introduction of new cropping technologies like aquaponics, or intercropping patterns, or integrated agricultural patterns, or whatever. When they use a combination of these hard and soft technologies, the economic losses are minimized, and also the adaptation to a climate change, especially in terms of agricultural ecosystem. So the adaptation of climate change by a population is largely welcomed, and the people are also trained on how to do this. So this kind of awareness, or this kind of action plan is going on a global scale. So a lot of countries have adapted such kind of systems to mitigate climate change events in the region. So, but what we are looking at right now is a new kind of technology, which we call as a hybrid technology, or technology that is already available and widely used. So, most of these hard technologies that we are talking about dates back to old ages, hundreds of years ago, where either local communities used traditional knowledges to cope up with the regular climatic events like flooding, or whatever flooding or drought patterns in the area. So those traditional knowledges are tapped from those local communities, and they are modernized, and these modernized technologies are sent back to the same communities or similar communities, and these technologies are revised and adapted in the same regions. So now farmers or agriculturalists have taken advantages of these modernized technologies to cope up with different environmental conditions like arid environmental conditions, drought conditions, or whatever, where they introduce new crops, new hybrids, and crops that grow in limited water conditions, or drip irrigation or whatever. Again, satellite, talking about space technology, satellite itself is a new age adaptation measure, especially in terms of agriculture, where satellite information is able to give accurate data on weather forecasting, different seasons where cropping can be adopted, or the prediction of drought seasons or rainy seasons or whatever. So this satellite technology over the past few decades has helped not only the farmer but also a fisherman in mitigating these impacts of climate change. Again, maybe in future years, we will come about crops which can be cultivated without water or with very less water, or already China and Japan are experimenting indoor agricultural patterns in large corporate firms. So such kind of adaptation measures may also come about. So when we are talking about space technology, when we are talking about satellite technology, we are also looking into sensors, GPS tracking, use of imagery and weather forecasting, especially when we are managing large agricultural areas. So they act as early warning systems. They give us real time effect about our cultivation patterns and agricultural lands, and this satellite technology is a boon, especially when it comes to agricultural areas. So these are this is an uh, uh, this is a picture that tells you about how satellite technology is able to support the agricultural farmers through 7 ways. So one is to monitor plant growth and crop productivity, to know the health of the crop and the quality of the produce obtained from a harvest, then to assess the crop pattern and the soil pattern, and to facilitate crop management among farmers, to increase the crop yield, at the same time to reduce energy consumption, to assess the carbon footprint due to agricultural activity, to assess soil moisture and irrigation requirements, and also whereby soil moisture can also lead to the crop health pattern, and avoid waste fertilizers, or to avoid pesticides and avoid over watering, and to forecast rainfall and crop diseases. So these are some of the ways where satellite technology is used to help the agriculture. So again, these are some of the satellites that provide data to the agriculture. So ResourceSat 2, 2A, Cartosat 1, RISSat 1, Kalpana, INSAT 3D, INSAT 3DR, all these satellites, either through multispectral or meteorological forecasting or through radar imaging, helps in identifying crop production and land use, land cover pattern, disaster management supports, irrigation patterns or contouring patterns, and monsoons, seasons, and weather reporting, and all support information that is required for a farmer. And again, we have some national programs for uh, the use of space technology. So these are some of the national programs like FASL, NADAMS, Charmin, and Kisan, which help the farmer which help in the welfare of the farmer through crop forecasting, drought assessment, horticultural assessment, and crop insurance. So these are the different areas, or these is the entire dependence on the agriculture. So we know our food, fuel, our fiber, and animal feed all depends on agriculture. Other than that, this is how the cycle works, where one resource is taken and the waste of the resource is again sent. The waste of the resource utilization is again sent back as a manure to the agricultural field. So we can see that agriculture acts as a raw material for industries, renders environmental services. We have a lot of pharmaceuticals through medicinal plants, and we same pesticide is given back to the agriculture, and agriculture is the basic backbone for economic development of a nation. So this is how the entire agriculture system works, and we need this agricultural system not only for the economic growth but also for the ecosystem services, for our fossil fuel, I mean for our biofuel dependence on agricultural feeds, for waste management, everything we need agricultural system. So that is why I am concentrating right now on the different technological tools for uh, agricultures. So here we are talking about when we are talking about soft technology, we also look at the smart technology that is available for a farmer, so that the farmer can focus about regional climate change adaptation, and also knowledge sharing among similar agricultural groups, or similar populations that are dependent on agriculture as their livelihood. So this is a smart farming system where we use different types of sensing technology, smartphones, global positioning system, computer systems, intra and internets, and software applications. So you through the Internet of Things and software known as SaaS, we are able to use existent data, existent crop management patterns, and traditional patterns to observe the changes during and post agricultural uh, seasons. So for this, data is collected nationally, organized, and the data is disseminated through a smart system to a farmer. So when we are talking about smart agriculture, we are looking at Internet of Things, where Internet and a software hardware system helps in development of an integrated smart planning tool for an agriculturist. So here we are looking at something known as AgriBots that was developed for farmers to optimize their agriculture and to efficiently yield from their agriculture. So similarly, we have semi-automatic robots and drones that can be used. So GPS-enabled drones can be used to monitor and survey agricultural farms, and also the pictures captured from the drones give us information about crop health, water stagnation, moisture stress, and spraying, and plant counting, and plant prediction, and all that. So now we are looking at how satellite data integrated with our smart technology can also give rise to a new technology uh, which can be disseminated at the use of the farmers. So a farmer does not have to seek a centralized unit for IoT or remote sensing. Instead, a farmer can use the available technology in his hand to gather information, to plan his agricultural patterns, cropping patterns, and to know, or to know about what are the present conditions about his crops, yield, crop diseases, and also to get expert knowledge. So not only share knowledge but also get expert knowledge, especially when a disease outcome is there in an agricultural farm. So when we are trying to concentrate on the advantage of smart farming over traditional farming. So here, in traditional farming, same set of farming practices are used to cultivate a crop throughout a region, but and it is manually maintained either through mechanical devices, and either through loaned finances, or rotated finances in an area. And the farmer uses fertilizers or pesticides throughout the field, and there is no way to predict or geotag a particular traditional uh, farming activity. But when it comes to smart technology, these smart technologies helps the farmer to analyze his crop, to identify crop suitability in the area, and to identify the water requirements in the area, and to optimize his cropping pattern according to his need and to his desired yield also. And early detection and application, so as to save cost, so as to seek finances also can be done. And profit and yield can be mapped or identified in an area with or without fertilizers. And to detect different zonal changes in a cropping pattern, and also to detect any kind of anomalies in the cropping area. And also smart farming helps the farmer to predict weather patterns, so that they can plan their cropping in a particular area. So, one of the most promising technologies, like I said earlier, is a technology which is available with the farmer in his own hand. He does not have to seek a centralized unit for IoT or for satellite data, but instead, a farmer can use an available smartphone with installed smart apps, where all these integrated information as to smart agricultural technology can be used, and this information is always available with the farmer in the form of a smartphone. So map modern agricultural platform is one of the smart app based smartphone based smart app solution for a farmer. So these are some of the agricultural apps that can be installed in an Android based smartphone. And these agricultural so the ones on my left, these agricultural apps are derived by the government, so to benefit the farmer. And the ones on my right are developed by some of the corporate units with regionalized data. And all these smart agricultural apps are free of cost for a farmer to download. So these agricultural apps help a farmer to assimilate data. And this entire app has been developed through data assimilation from different crop units, from national crop units. The data is processed and set up into an app, so that this data can be disseminated to each and individual farmer. They can see the different cropping functions over national and global scales. They can take the data, they can assess the data, they can adapt it in their own region for a successful yield. So these are some of the advantages of using smart apps in agriculture. Like the smart app, as I told you, is readily available, it is robust, the output predictability is very high, it is very efficient to use. A farmer doesn't have to undergo any special training or any kind of user based knowledge to use a smart app in a smartphone. So these are some of the advantages, like less waste, higher yield, geo tagging is available, weather and satellite patterns. Satellite based weather patterns can be used as inputs for uh, crop planning. So, UNFCC, a United Nations Forum for Climate Change, has suggested adaptory plan, an anticipatory climate change adaptive plan, especially for farmers. And the one of the adaptive plans is to improve the public awareness and preparedness, so that they can combat climate change risks, and they can mitigate the events of climate change. So this can be done through early warning systems. Okay, and one of the promising technologies to improve public health awareness and preparedness for early warning system is the smartphone technology. So these are some of the available tools, especially for the agricultural sector, where they can use these freely available tools to identify, uh, you know, or to easily use some of these outcomes of the tools for their cropping pattern. So iCycle is one such tool, which tells about various materials that can be recycled. Carbon Calc is another tool or another smartphone app that tells about the energy usage and carbon footprint of a particular area. Climate Count is again another app to this climate count tells about the usage of various various products that we use and the impact it has on climate. So Green Space app tells us about the environmental designated areas and hazardous pollution areas in a particular area, in a particular region. And these are some of the apps that talk about invasive species, especially in terms of agricultural sector. Invasive species is a greater environmental threat. And then also tells us about protected areas and where protected species also in an area. And Atmos and Sense Your Air are two apps that tell us about atmospheric pressure, temperature, and also pollution conditions in an area. So all these apps give us environmental information. Migratory patterns of birds. This app is used. Migrate is used to raise awareness about migration and migration patterns of birds. And also Equus is another app that tells us about the outdoor activity, about especially in relation to climate change, water, coastal areas, and all. So My Seasons is another app that tells us about seasonal patterns, especially in terms of vegetation monitoring, in terms of rainfall patterns, in terms of temperature patterns, and all that. So My Seasons is another app. Again, we have air quality information app from National Environmental Agency, which tells us about the air quality and pollution. And Carbon Choices app that tells us about the carbon emissions from us. Green Commute app that tells us about ride sharing and how we can join with another person to reduce carbon emissions. And Earth Now is another app that tells us about all environmental related information and also satellite derived information. So these are some apps that can be used for researchers, deriving data for researchers, as well as for agricultural cropping patterns or agricultural purposes. So these are just a few apps that I was able to show on how these apps can be used not only for climate change mitigation for a population, but also for certain populations. We were talking about agricultural population, but also other populations like coastal populations or populations living in arid zones or whatever. So each an app has its own advantage, and each app has an own way of, disseminating information to to the community. Not only that, a lot of NGOs have come up with regionalized apps that help the farmer to share his knowledge on his cropping pattern, or a regionalized app that shares information about traditional medicinal practices and all that. So these kind of regional apps are all available through an Android base, which can be downloaded and can be used for the benefit of the user. So to conclude, I wish to say that the smartphone based application is now is a cheap, is an available application everyone have gone into the usage of smartphones to for education as well as to resources consumption to resources usage. So this kind of smartphone technology, not only for the use of it has been widely used for social networking, but it can be also alternately used for mitigating climate change, especially in developing agricultural practices. So it is a big leap from traditional practice methods into modern practice methods, and we have a lot of support systems, especially cloud-based software, cloud-based apps, free apps that help us not only suggest us on integrated app technology, but also help us on how to choose, identify app download. Also, these cloud-based knowledge also helps us to choose the markets or deal with the availability or performs predictive analysis, so that the user gets a best output from a smartphone developed application. Again, not only for farmers or any kind of regionalized population which needs a support system can seek cloud-based apps for financial services such as banks, food processing companies, insurance providers, free seed production and production distributors, government-based schemes, and all that, so that these people, especially from these marginalized communities, can be better benefited. Also, such tools, when these smartphone based apps, when they help a farmer to adapt to green technology, when they can adapt to green economy and green production and green consumption, it benefits the environment at large, whereby environmental issues can be minimized, environmental degradation can be minimized, which leads to a large scale climate change minimization also. So on a larger focus, the adaptation of green methods, not only for agriculture but as well as conservation and economy, these kind of green method adaptation uh, reduces the risk of climate change events in the future. So one of the examples is efficient use of water or efficient use of water treatment and input of water patterns. So with this, I wish to conclude that our smartphone technology not only can be used as an entertainment or a social media tool, at the same time, a smartphone technology, if used in the right manner, can help us identify uh, measures or innovative can derive innovative ideas for climate change mitigation to reduce the impacts on a human population. Thank you. With this, you can see my slide has the my address and contact details, so I am hoping to get queries from the audience through email or through phones, which can be uh, which I can clarify as soon as possible. Thank you.